and medical problem. They saw that ACE children would have a higher chance of having, for example, developing a lung disease, up to 390% more chances. It's amazing how trauma that hasn't been addressed can affect us physically, right? I found the suicide attempts to be the most concerning, right? So it really affects us mentally, and knowing this can help us do something about it. If you are interested in this adverse childhood experience test, you can take a picture of this QR code and you can just do it. I believe it's 10 questions and it will tell you your score, and it will help you know what to do and how to address to get the support you need. But the good news is that although this increased risk is very unfortunate, it can be reduced by the proper treatment and interventions. So developmental, even though it looks like we can't do anything about it, there is hope, and yes, we can do something about it. Number 3, lifestyle. We saw that that's another hit, and we see that this has to do with our habits. Today, we're going to learn an acronym, and you know one of them. New Start is very well known. I bring another one that has a couple more additions that address the mind, that we worked with Beautiful Minds, so that we can continue practicing our lifestyle and make sure that we don't fall under this hit. And I'm going to share that later today. Number 4, circadian rhythm, right? So we talked about sleeping too much or sleeping too little. What are some of the main factors that affect our sleep quality? I want to hear you. What's that? Sleep apnea, yes, yeah. And what would be some of the causes of sleep apnea? What causes sleep apnea to our... What's that? Anxiety, yeah. Obesity, yeah. So lifestyle would help us with that, right? What are other things that can help us sleep better or that affects us? Caffeine, yes, absolutely. Caffeine it alters our nervous system. Our thoughts, big one. And a lot of people go to sleeping pills when we have CBT. We saw that yesterday. The reframing helps us. Gratitude helps us. What else affects our sleep? Stressful environment. Dark. So the opposite of dark would be the light, right? And what's the biggest threat that doesn't let us sleep very well today? We all have one in our pockets. Phones, and if we don't have them in the pockets, we have them in the walls, TVs, if not in our desk, tablets, computers. Why is that light detrimental for our health? It has the blue light. And you know the blue light is the same as the sun. So our minds are being tricked. Our minds believe that, I'm being exposed to daylight, so I'm not going to produce what I need to produce, which is the melatonin, right? Which is called the hormone to sleep better, right? And if we don't produce that melatonin, we're not going to be induced into sleep as easily, right? And here we are taking all this melatonin that we don't really need. What we need is just to not expose ourselves to that blue light at least 2 hours before bedtime, right? So if we really need the phone, I would recommend these glasses. You can find them in Amazon. These are amber-colored glasses. The amber is one of them. They're like brown orange. These are one of the most effective to filter the blue light. So you can wear those 2 hours before bedtime, right? Or bedtime in the night. And you can also change your light, right, in the dark. Before we had electricity, what did we use for light? Candlelight, right? And the candlelight doesn't have the blue light. So we can think of options, right? But definitely let's guard our eyes from that blue light, because that affects us. And many people say, I can't sleep. One of the main questions that I ask is, are you looking at your phone or any tablets? The other question that I ask is, how late are you eating? Because also when we eat, we release insulin to do our digestion, and that also compromises melatonin. I hope the doctors here approve of what I'm saying. Yes, they're nodding. Yes, thank you. We need that endorsement. But definitely when we eat too late, a lot of people don't wake up with hunger, right? They're like, no, I don't get hungry. Why? Because we eat too late and the body doesn't digest it as effectively, right? Gives us nightmares. It's not good. It doesn't let us go into our sleep. Also, sleeping too late in the evening is not as restorative, right? So we need to find out what is it that is affecting us, right? so that we can sleep better. But yes, the blue light is one of the biggest counterfeits for that. Number 5, suppressed frontal lobe. So again, living against our values, not doing abstract thinking, right? And also not having a diet that is suitable for our brains, so that affects us. Number 6, inadequate nutrition. So here is diets that are deficient in omega-3. Omega-3 is very important. It's a good fat for the brain, right? For it to process and create and produce these different neurotransmitters that are the ones that balance our mood, right? Like dopamine, serotonin, and these different hormones. Folic acid is very important too, tryptophan, vitamin B. Also, processed sugars, foods that are high in meat, and cholesterol levels are also not good for our brains. They actually inflame our brains. So we need to really go to better foods, and those foods are those that are in the vegetable kingdom, right? Those foods are the best because they have fiber and they're low in inflammation. They help us to get all the nutrients that we need. Also, eating disorders affect us because that is connected to us not getting the right nutrients, right? Or getting the wrong kind of nutrients. Oh my goodness. Close your eyes. I don't want to reveal all the beautiful gifts I brought. Nah. And you know what? I tried a different clicker tonight because yesterday I didn't like the one. Are you guys praying? Thank you for your prayers. It's working. Okay, addiction. So addiction is doing what is harmful for us in out of balance, right? So substance abuse like tobacco, heavy caffeine use. Many times we say, oh, no, I'm not, I don't do any addictions. But sometimes we can do things that are good in an unbalanced way, and that could be in nutrition, like a lot of sugar, caffeine. Recreational drugs also land under addiction. Daily use of benzodiazepines. These are medication for mental, right? And if we do this for more than 30 days, it also affects our brain, right? And the behavioral that I mentioned. So addiction is another big hit. I'm gonna softly click on my clicker. Toxicity, we talked about that. Water, air, what do we do if we live in polluted cities? Well, we can bring plants into our house. We can look for going into different parts outside of the city. We can also get some filters. There's good filters that we can bring into our house so that at least we mitigate the toxicity. Household items and personal care products, amazing. Ladies, we put so much stuff in our skin. If we count how much cosmetics and fragrances and lotions and things we put in our hair, in our skin, all those things alter our hormones and also affect us because it's highly toxic. So let's try to look for those natural products and natural cleaning. Like I clean with vinegar and I add some essential oils that are very natural, and I clean the floors, and it's even cheaper and it's not bad for our lungs, right, and our skin. So look for some of these options online. There's a lot available now, and you live in a very privileged country where you can find a lot in health food stores. That's toxicity. Number 9, we're almost there. If my clicker lets me. Social, right? Absence of social support. We are living in a pandemic of isolation. Amazing. Technology, as I was mentioning, keeps us more in contact, but less in connection. What's the difference? Relationships, right? So we must stay together. Let's go out. This is why I absolutely love Sabbath and our church, because we get to connect with one another, right? And it helps us not to have this hit. God was very wise when he developed the model of a family and of the church, because we really need to stay connected. Negative or stressful life events, some of these are inevitable, right? But we already have the power to change our mind and to look at things that are difficult in a positive way. So instead of them being a threat for us, it can be an opportunity for us to grow. Christ would say that in the Beatitudes. In Matthew 5, he said, "Blessed be those that are poor in spirit, broken," right? Persecuted. Why did he say that? There is blessing. There is blessing in that because we build the muscle, the spiritual muscle, our dependence in the Father, and we get to connect with him and experience true power beyond what humans can ever offer, right? Low social class, being raised by grandparents, and substance abuse of an immediate family member also is considered as part of this hit, the social hit. And the last one, medical conditions, as I was mentioning, injuries, strokes, or being diagnosed with a chronic illness, neurological condition, an endocrine disorder, or reproductive or related stressors. All these things affect us mentally. So if we have it, this one, we can, again, remember that we can live with 3 or less, and we can do something about it through lifestyle, because we already know what's the cause of disease, right? It's violating the laws of health and not living according to our design. I want to share what this Dr. Dean Ornish, he's done a lot of research on lifestyle, and he actually did a research on prostate cancer. And what he did is he grabbed 31 men, and for 3 months he changed the environment. And what did he offer? He offered a plant-based diet. That's the best diet because it's based on plants. Again, it's low in inflammation and it has all the nutrients that we need for our brains to work well, right? They engaged these 31 men, in addition to that diet, in physical activity. How many minutes a day? 30 minutes. It wasn't 1 hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes. It's pretty easy, right, to do 30 minutes of the whole hour, the total hours of the day. They also had stress management strategies, things that, like what we're learning every evening here. They had weekly support sessions, and they looked at their gene expression before the 3 months and after the 3 months. Are you interested to see what happened after these interventions? Very powerful. Drum roll. Look at this. We have the pre-intervention, the genes, and the post. Do you see the difference in colors? Amazing. What they found is that after the period of the test, 500 genes were altered. A total of 453 disease-promoting genes were deactivated. Click, turned off. Amazing. And they saw that 48 cancer-fighting genes were activated. So this is a prostate cancer research. And a lot of these genes that were to help fight cancer were activated. And what was the intervention? Stress management, exercise, good nutrition, and weekly support groups. It wasn't really expensive, right? We have access to that. We can create that. And look at, in only 3 months, 500 genes were altered. Imagine if we were to live a life like that, right? Amazing. Many times people say, oh, it's all in my genes. What can I do? But surprise, surprise, there's actually a lot you can do. In just 3 months, I can modify hundreds of my genes simply by changing my diet and lifestyle. Super exciting. And the doctor says, and this is not only for prostate cancer. This applies for any condition, right? So there is hope for us when we have the genes that we saw that many times are against us, right? And these are some of the key genes associated with major depressive disorder that were also part of the study, I believe. Okay, so net, it all comes down to the choices we make. And that is our superpower. So, hey, the more we use it, the stronger it will be. And if my clicker helps me, guys, keep praying. Don't stop those prayers. I want to close with the story of a king. How am I with the time? Who can tell me the time briefly? 50? So I'm going to go quickly. Every evening we open up our Bibles. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do it all tonight because of the time, but I'm going to try to tell it through the verses. Please look them up and meditate on these because these are very powerful. The story of a king, and Daniel is the king that we're going to be talking about, Nebuchadnezzar. Remember, this king that is very well known, he was in charge of the biggest and most powerful nation in Daniel's time. And he actually wrote his testimony. And there is power in testimony. It's not just his idea and his opinion. It's a story of his life. And in chapter 4, he is addressing all nations, because this guy had influence, right? So he was addressing all nations, wanting to share with them peace. He says, peace be multiplied to you, because he thought it was good to declare, and he's giving the credit to God who changed his life through a journey that he went through. So it's interesting to point that out, because what he wanted to share was something that he had experienced, and that was peace. We ended yesterday with that, with the idea of peace. And what happened in his testimony? Please, clicker. We're pressured on time. Okay, what happens? He has a troubled mind. He actually has a second dream, right? Daniel 2 is his first dream, and then we have another dream coming up, and he dreams of something that he had a heart for. Trees, right? The records tells us that Nebuchadnezzar really liked trees, and he had a lot in his garden, and the hanging, how is it called? The hanging gardens? Yeah, very famous, right? Because this man really liked nature. And it's amazing how God speaks to us in what is of value for us to communicate. So God gives him a dream, right? And the dream troubled him, right? Even though it was something he liked, it troubled him. And he says, let me just read it out loud. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in my house, and flourishing in my palace, I saw a dream which made me afraid. The thoughts on my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. So if I were to show these symptoms to a doctor, he would say, this is insomnia. This man struggles with insomnia, right? Because he's troubled. Therefore, I issued a decree to bring all the wise men of Babylon. So he recruits all the wise men to help him understand what this dream means. He had already had an experience before where Daniel interprets this dream, yet he still calls all the wise men which includes the magicians, the astrologers, all these people, the soothsayers, to tell him what this dream was, right? And what happens? Again, they fail to be able to tell him because they were not connected to the truth. So he then remembers and says, okay, bring me Daniel. And he remembers how Daniel is connected to the truth and the Spirit, right? Because he has been able to do this before for him. So Daniel came and he tells him the dream, right? And he says, and the king says, because I know that the Spirit of the Holy God is in you and no secret troubles you. So he recognizes something different in Daniel. He says, explain to me the visions of my dream that I have seen and its interpretation. What does Daniel do? He connects to the source. Of course, he's always connected to the source. And he reveals the dream. And the dream is a call for change. So the tree that he dreamt of, he dreams of a tree, but it says that an angel comes down and asks for this tree to be chopped down and to be destroyed, yet leaving the stump and the roots in the earth. So the tree is chopped down, but the roots are still there. So what's happening? The tree needs to be born again or grow again, right? There's something about the tree that needs to be destroyed, right? And then he says, Daniel is telling him, let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let him graze with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king. They shall drive you from man. So he's saying you need to be set apart. This is what needs to happen. You need to be set apart. And then it says your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. So you have to hang out with nature, right? And they shall make you eat grass like oxen. And you have to eat some of these low-inflammatory foods, not those meats that you dedicate to your gods, but actually some good grass. They shall wet you with the dew of heaven. There is some hydration in the components. And 7 times shall pass over you till you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. And inasmuch as they gave the command to leave the stump and roots of the tree, your kingdom shall be assured to you after what? After you come to know that heaven rules. Therefore, king, let my advice be acceptable to you. Break off from your sins. What is sin? When we live against our design, right? When we go against what God has designed for us. By being righteous, and your iniquities by showing mercy to the poor. Perhaps there may be the lengthening of your prosperity. So Daniel is telling him, hey, there is hope for you, but there needs to be some change, and you need to go through some interventions for you to restore your mental health, and remember that it's not you that has the power, because the king had some pride issues. And it suggests that. by saying he has to be righteous and show mercy to the poor because he was very high there, right? And he says, if this happens, your prosperity will be lengthened, right? So the king accepts, fast forward, the king accepts, goes through this, and he continues to struggle with pride, but he eventually comes back to his senses. Verses 34 to 37, he says, as he writes his testimony, that at the end of the time that he went through this intervention, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to where? To heaven. And what happens? His understanding returned to him. So he gained back his mental health. And blessed be the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. And if we go fast forward and to the next highlighted piece there in color, it says, at the same time, my reason returned to me, and for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and splendor returned to me. So he recognizes that God is the Most High, and as he reclaims his mental health by focusing on him, everything is given back to him, even in more abundance. So there is an intervention, there is a process that we have to go to, but many times it's for us to really see where and who to focus on, and who do we depend on for our true health, right? Nebuchadnezzar was a great example of how we can be humbled in love so that those roots can give birth to a bigger tree that can provide a lot more of fruit. Ezekiel 36:26 says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. So the Lord wants us to be cut down of all those things that are not helpful, that give way for pride, and he wants to give us a new life, a new heart, and a new experience. So, and he wants to give us longevity. So I'm going to close with the blue zones. Have you heard of the blue zones? Yeah, all these zones in the world. National Geographic, Dan Buettner, a journalist that wanted to know where do these populations that live the longest live. And it was amazing what he found, that these 5 zones that you see there highlighted had nothing in common in terms of geography or genetics, but they had a lot of things in common in terms of their lifestyle. And it's amazing to see, and I absolutely love to share this with my friends, because Loma Linda is considered to be a blue zone. And when you visit Loma Linda, have you been to Loma Linda? A dear place to my heart. But Loma Linda is not as beautiful as Greece or Italy or Japan or Costa Rica. It's not as beautiful. How come they made it? How come they made it? Because they have the highest concentration of Adventists, and they follow the lifestyle principles. And community and rest are 2 of the most popular reasons why they made it, the Sabbath. And service, outreach in community, right? So the blue zones is another example for those that don't believe in Bible. They can see it in the science. National Geographic published it, and living these principles are really the recipe for longevity. So the formula for health at the root is choose life. I like this word because it's choice. We get to choose, and we get to choose life, inspired by Deuteronomy 30:19. And what are these principles? The first one and most important one, the C for connection. If we are disconnected, we're not going to be able to live, right? And choose life. We need to connect with the Lord, who gives us the willpower, and we're going to talk about that later this week, so that we can then have the willpower to choose what's good for us. The second one is hydration. We need the water. We saw it in Nebuchadnezzar, and we see it that we're made out of a lot of water content. We saw that yesterday. Optimism, we saw that the first night. Gratitude, and there's so much power and impact in our health when we practice gratitude. Oxygen is air, fresh air. We need to access good air. Self-control, we already saw how we can live and overcome addiction. E for exercise, and when I talk about exercise, I not only talk about the physical, but I talk about the exercise that we've been practicing every evening, right? Reframing our thoughts, practicing our gratitude, practicing the truth by dwelling and also meditating on God's word. We have the L for light, and here I like the light because it addresses the light of the sun, but also the light that we don't want to live by, right? The blue light and the technology, right? We need the real light. Also, the internal clock, and this is not only the Sabbath rest, but also making sure we eat in our regular meal times and that we sleep in our regular times. So internal clock is everything that regulates our good health internally. Food for thought, food for the spirit, food for the brain, food for the body, right? How are we fueling those beautiful cars? And the environment, the most important. If we don't have the right environment, all of these principles are going to be hard to sustain. So my call tonight is, how can we start choosing life? And I have one gift for you so that we can practice this in starting today. So Abel, do you mind just showing one of the sheets if you have one there? So at the end, as you go out, make sure you pick one or two of these sheets, and you can start practicing. So this is a list that I worked with Dr. Thank you. He has them. Can you look at them? We have plenty, so you can take a couple. But these are just healthy habits that you can practice every day as a checklist during a full week, so that you can start experiencing the change as we live a healthy lifestyle based on what we learned on Daniel and also endorsed by the doctors that I worked with. I asked them, I'm like, Dr. Nedley, Dr. Binas, if we were to give our patients something practical out of all the Choose Life acronym, which ones would you say as a mental health doctor? So they gave me those principles, and that's how we came about that sheet. So hopefully you can practice it and at least start getting familiarized with each one of them has science support. So you're going to read things like classical music, but there is proof that when we put classical music, it helps us mentally. So that's going to be our challenge for this evening, to get started and incorporating this into your lifestyle. And I'm not going to see Pastor Nathaniel because I'm taking more time, but let's close with a word of prayer. Thank you for being here. Father in heaven, thank you for giving us the superpower of choice. Thank you, Father, for giving us also the recipe to live abundantly and to have physical, mental, spiritual, and social health. And help us, Father, reach that final destination and fulfill the purpose that you have in our lives as we choose you and to live your principles. Thank you, Father, for your blessing and your love. We ask it in your name. Amen. Have a good evening.
Thank you for coming tonight. That was a good session as well. There's hopefully you guys learned a lot. Did you guys learn a lot? All right. Now the question will be, how much of it were you able to retain? So it's a lot of information, but luckily for you guys can go back and watch it again on our YouTube channel. So you can watch that, go to our Dalton Seventh Adventist Church YouTube channel, and you can rewatch these again. You can share them with your friends or your family to watch them as well, because there's some good information on there. Now with that sheet there that we're going to give you on the way out, when you start filling that out, that's for a week, right? But you're going to live longer than a week. So if you fill that out, you're probably not going to be able to use it again. So I would recommend that you make copies of it and use it that way until you can start making these habits. After you make them habits, then you probably don't need the check sheet anymore. Also, when you look at it, you may tend to get a little overwhelmed because maybe there's quite a few things on there that you're not doing. And then I know for some people that just looking at something like that can cause some anxiety because they're not doing these things. So my recommendation, and what I usually recommend to people, is that when you look at that, just pick one or two things, start doing those. As you get into the habit of doing those, then the next week, maybe pick another item and start doing that one. And so just little by little start implementing these things into your life. And I would say you're probably going to start experiencing some positive benefits just by doing that. So that would be my recommendation. Just take a few of those. Maybe you already do some of those, and that's easy. But the ones that you're not doing, pick something that you know you can do. If you pick out the hardest one that you know you're going to have a challenge with, you could get discouraged and give up, going back to that all or nothing thinking. But don't do that, okay? Just pick a couple that you say, oh, you know what? Drinking water, I can drink a little extra water. I already drink a few glasses a day. I can increase it. So maybe it says 8 glasses a day. I don't remember what it says exactly. But take, and you drink 2 glasses a day and that's really hard for you, then just increase it by 2 glasses. It's not the 8 glasses, but increase it by 2, and then as you get used to that, increase it by 2 more until you get to that goal. Does that make sense? So put it in little bite-sized chunks that you can actually do, and don't get overwhelmed and just throw it out the window completely, because that's the all or nothing thinking we saw last night. All right? And if you have any questions, you can always ask me or ask Mariola afterwards. And I just want to encourage you guys to keep pushing on, keep trying. Happy that you're here and you're learning all these things. Look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow night.